Who is Black Pigeon Speaks? Black Pigeon Speaks is a YouTuber, internet personality who became popular after the 2015 migrant crisis from Syria, when the Syrians, after the Syrian civil war, and the Syrians were entering Europe. Sorry for being sort of disoriented. As always, this is an off-the-cuff video, which most of my videos are. Black Pigeon Speaks is one of those people who primarily became influential from one major video. And this major video was probably the most influential video of all right-wing internet. I remember seeing it posted everywhere for weeks. And it got millions of views. And it was titled, "Why Women Destroy Civilizations and Other Uncomfortable Truths." If there is one video that primarily summed up the right-wing view of the world in the 21st century, it was that video. Why Women Destroy Civilizations and Other Uncomfortable Truths. The gist of the video essentially made the argument that women are, at least, especially quote-unquote Western women, which is basically just code for white women, that women are pathologically altruistic, and they are pathologically altruistic, and they welcome migrants into their countries because they have a subconscious desire to be dominated. Essentially, that was the argument. And it was like one of those videos that would make even the most moderate feminists rip their hair out. And there are so many women in that comment section that were so appalled by the arguments, and so many men. This video probably on its own inspired the whole WQ meme, the woman question meme. For those of you who don't know, the woman question meme, the WQ, is a parody, it's like a spin-off of the JQ, which is like the Jewish question. This right-wing tendency to scapegoat Jews, and it's like this massive Jewish cabal that's controlling everything. The Jewish question. It was a women question. They were always asked, so how do we solve the WQ? And this video, it was probably primarily responsible for popularizing that meme back in the mid 2010s, almost to late 2010s, primarily between 2015 and 2017. And the popularity of that video, it was riding on the wave of the men's rights movement. The men's rights movement pretty much fizzled out around 2015. And that video was posted as the men's rights movement was dying, and as what the media calls the alt-right was being born. The men's rights movement is its own category entirely, but a lot of their ideas and influences and personalities fed into what became this massive Trump phenomenon. And Black Pigeon Speaks, he was one of the most popular people on YouTube, and this channel grew rapidly until it began to get shadow banned about around the end of 2017, the beginning of 2018. That's when the censorship really kicked into overdrive and the channel began to die. He used to get no video got less than 100,000 views, and mostly on the first day. That's how popular he was. All of the right-wing thinkers and influencers wanted to speak to Black Pigeon Speaks. Now he's his ideas still live on in the right-wing space, but It's like they live in like, it's like the afterglow of that video still affects right-wing thinkers and spaces. And a lot of his ideas came from the academic J.D. Unwin, who wrote a book called Sex and Culture, which was like basically just his video in written form. And a lot of his, he probably never read this book, but it was very similar to a book written by F. Roger Devlin, which is a book titled Sexual Utopia and Power, which essentially makes the same argument. I've read that book. It essentially makes the same argument. But anyway, Black Pigeon speaks. Currently, he's a lot less radical in this, like, he probably holds the same, he most likely still holds the same views, but he's a lot less radical these days. He's a lot more reserved. And I think a big reason why there was such a massive backlash in the 2015 era was because of the migrant crisis and like white panic. A lot of that sort of died down in America as the shock of non-European migration into Europe has died down. But it will be interesting to see if the Trump phenomenon, his Trump second term, kills radical white consciousness, or if it will somehow be able to rise up. My best guess is that J.D. Vance, or someone like J.D. Vance, could possibly be the future. J.D. Vance is I know this video is kind of going on a tangent, but it has a broader message behind it. J.D. Vance's wife is Indian and he's white, and he's from Middle America. I believe Appalachia. One thing you'll notice about a lot of these right-wingers is they're not necessarily anti, like, non-white. They're anti-non-white that's male, if you notice. Their entire worldview, like Black Pigeon speaks, he lives in East Asia primarily for a large portion of his life. Andrew England, he lived in the Philippines, and there are videos of him like dating women of Filipino descent while espousing white nationalist views. A lot of their worldview seems to be rooted in like this narcissism, this angst about not being able to stay. They have this idea of what it means to be white, of being a conqueror, the guy who's on top, the guy who, like, the Western civilization, the civilization that basically subjugated all of the brown people. And there's this like angst associated with like non-white males dominating them in venues they believe they should be dominant, like black males dominating them in sports, or Indians dominating them in tech. And there's like this angst, and they retreat from the way they deal with this angst is like they retreat into the hinterwelt. They retreat to like the countryside, to the suburbs, and they marry like these Asian women. It's like they construct a false reality around themselves in order to deal, because they cannot deal with reality as it exists. Western civilization was never that great. It was simply another chapter in human history. And the afterglow of their civilization, of this like this sudden burst that was Western civilization during the 15th century, the afterglow of the late 15th century, the afterglow of it, it's like they're performing this like performative ghost dance, and they can't seem to let go of it. And they are living out this like the afterglow by like retreating into the hinterworld. It's almost like they're living vicariously, like they're living vicariously through the achievements of the ancestors. And they have these like Asian women, Asian as in East Asian and like Indian and stuff, these women as wives, almost as like trophies. It's very strange. But anyway, Black Pigeon Speaks. Very interesting person. I'm not saying he's either a good person or a bad person. I'm simply saying his videos are very, very interesting. And more importantly, they're very, very impactful on what we call today the right-wing movement in the 2020s. Less impactful as they were in the 2010s, the late 2010s, I might add. But impactful nonetheless. His ideas and his influence, it exists just beneath the surface.